Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Monica Brooks, and I'm so happy that you're here today. I'm going to be talking about, does everything happen for a reason? This was a question I was asked recently. And now that I've had time to think about how I would have responded, I'm going to share that with you today. So let's get started. Welcome to the Becoming a Better You podcast. My name is Monica Brooks, and I'm a self-improvement enthusiast who is eager to share tips and strategies to help you become the best version of yourself. As an inspirational speaker who transitioned from a corporate career, I'm here to guide you on your journey towards enhancing your overall human experience. If you're ready to take the first step towards becoming the best version of yourself, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. I was recently a keynote speaker, and it came time for the question and answer part. Now, this was something very new for me, not necessarily the keynote, but it was my first time publicly sharing my cancer diagnosis story. I've always hesitated with speaking about it because I like to stay on topic of what the theme is. But this company was celebrating their 75th anniversary, and I thought, you know what? I know enough about them. I work with many of them, and I felt like this was a good time to talk about it when talking about change. So, with that though, came time for a Q&A session, and I decided with my friend that worked there, I was like, why don't we just call it Ask Monica Anything? Because it could be about the professional aspect of change, but also my personal story about how I've managed change. So the very first question was, do I believe that everything happens for a reason? And I basically vomited out like 5 years of what's been in my brain into like 60 seconds. And it did not come out the way I wanted it to come out. So I figured that this is a chance, an opportunity to redeem myself and really explain what was going on in my brain. I'm typically really good at question and answer, but it has always been on the professional content side. But I was very thankful for the question. But I also was like, in a way, caught off guard, like, ooh, that's so good. And I was thinking, I don't think I can answer that in like this short period of time. So I figured, let's talk about it today on the podcast. I'd love to also hear what your thoughts are too. Do you think everything happens for a reason? So if you want to respond to this podcast and feedback, something new to share with me, please do so. You can always reach out to me at monica@monicabrooks.com. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so back to the topic. I remember one of the first times I heard someone say this after I was diagnosed. Now, we weren't talking about my diagnosis when they said this. It was something they were going through themselves. And they said, well, everything happens for a reason. And that really rubbed me the wrong way in that moment. I'm thinking, like, well, why did I get cancer? I would get really fired up about it because I was like, okay, if a kid crosses the street and gets hit, you're basically telling me that that happened for a reason. And it really, like, the thought when people say things like that. But I also think like that's our society. Like, we don't know how to process bad things that happen, so we just brush it off. Like, we can't go deeper sometimes because we don't know the reason. And so we just say really vague comments that can be insensitive to a lot of people who have experienced trauma. And let's be honest, we all have experienced trauma. So even as a child, if something bad has happened to you and someone says, well, that happened for a reason, and you're just thinking, like, I'm suffering here. So sometimes that comment comes off because we've never learned what else to say when bad things happen. We can't comprehend it. It doesn't make sense. So we just say stupid shit. Like, yeah, what I'm saying is, if you are someone that has said that, that's okay. If you continue to say it, that's up to you. I'm not pressuring you or telling you to stop saying it. I just think as a society, we can do better when bad things happen and learning the right things to say. So I'm going to share with you what I shared at the end of this keynote, but I'm going to share it maybe a little more clearly and not so quickly. And my nerves were going because I'm like, oh man, I hope I answered this question correctly. I hope it fits what they were looking for. But here is my thought, and I want to break it down for you. But in order to do that, I want to back up. I don't know what happens like before we're born, what happens after we die. So I just want you to be open to just a visual. I'm not saying this is what I believe. It just helps me better understand what I'm going through when tragedy strikes, when trauma happens, when bad things happen to you. Okay, so it's more like, let's just say this is a story. There we go. This is more like a story. Okay, take it for what you will. What I imagine and this like collective heaven, universal consciousness, whether it's the universe or God, however this story speaks to you. I imagine that before we're born, we're up there as, again, angels, collective consciousness, whatever. And we're like, man, I really want to know what it's like to be a human. And it's like, oh, it looks like it's such an experience. And God or the universe is like, whoa, hold on. Like, I know you want to go down there, but you're not ready. And you're like, no, no, like I want to know what it's like to feel a hug, like the human touch and what that feels like. I want to feel like what it feels like to have a tear drop down my face. I want to know what the love of a child feels like. And note, I did not say the love of your child because I am very sensitive to people who are going through infertility. But it's just if you have a child, whether it's a niece or a nephew or your own child or a neighbor or someone you have a bond with, right? You want to feel that love because that love is unconditional. And God is like, I don't think you realize how hard it's going to be. And you're like, but I really want to do it. I really want to experience being a human being down on earth. And so God, the universe is like, all right, I'm going to send you down there. But there's one thing I want you to know. Yes, it's going to be hard, but you're not going to remember this conversation. And you pause and you think, okay, that means I'm going to go through things and not understand. And it's going to be hard. But you're so excited for this experience. And you say, okay. So fast forward to your life right now. Has your life been hard in some way? Have you felt your heart break into pieces? Have you felt what it's like to be loved by someone? Have you felt that tear run down your face? Have you felt the embrace of a hug? Have you felt grief? Because on this experience that we're all going through, I look at our feelings on the spectrum, okay? And the spectrum is the best possible feeling you're going to feel as a human is unconditional love. Someone who's going to love you no matter what on those good days or bad days, they're your ride or die. But the worst possible feeling you are going to feel as a human being is grief and loss. It's like it permanently puts a hole in your heart. Have you felt everything from unconditional love to grief? Because that means you're human. So now let's back up to, does everything happen for a reason? I quickly want to say no, right? Because it makes it sound like you deserved this. You needed to go through this. And that's unfair. That's unfair to anyone who has suffered big T trauma. But with this perspective, does everything happen for a reason? Sometimes I can answer yes. However, that's because I look at my human experience as the school of life. That doesn't mean you deserve the things you go through. But as you are in heaven looking down saying, I want to do this, I want to be here, I want my soul to grow through this experience. Bad things have to happen in order for you to grow as a person, so that by the end of your life, you're like, I did it. Look at all of the hard things I did, and I grew from it. And that's the key. That is the key right there. Everything happens for a reason in order for you to grow. Again, that does not mean you deserve what happened to you. But if we signed up for this, so to speak, and we're living it, and our whole purpose is to grow by the end of our lives, we have to go through this. Cancer has taught me so much. I remember someone saying to me very early on, wow, cancer was like a blessing in disguise. And I literally did not want to be around that person anymore. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to be friends because I was early on. As I've grown, I've been more open to other people's beliefs and through their journey, what they're learning. But I would not be where I'm at today had it not been for my cancer diagnosis. I don't look at my cancer diagnosis as the worst thing that happened to me. I look at it and I'm like, look how much better I am now. I'm going to give you two examples of how I'm a better person because of cancer and how I chose to grow from this. The first one is that I'm less bitter. I was such a bitter person to people who had wronged me. Like three people, I mean, bring them up. And my mind was like, I could feel the bitterness like boiling inside of me. I probably had a hatred for one of them for how they treated me. But guess what? They weren't feeling my bitterness. I was. I felt I was a healthy person, but emotionally, maybe I wasn't. I had a lot of ugliness inside of me because of how I looked at other people and how I viewed them and how I viewed the experiences I had been through. The other thing I've learned from cancer is that I'm more forgiving. I don't want to feel resentment towards anyone, even the person in traffic who cut me off. Sometimes I say they must have an emergency. Or the person who didn't use their blinker, I just say their blinker must be broken. Like, I don't want to feel negativity towards anybody. And sometimes I do. I'm human, right? Like I do, but I just don't talk about it. I don't repeat the story over and over to people about some event that happened that's now in the past. And I'm sorry, I had three things. The third one, tying into that, was that I live more in the present moment. I don't allow the future to invade my present moment, because as soon as you cast yourself forward and you start worrying about the unknowns and what could happen, you're actually robbing yourself of joy and time and energy right now. So I don't think about the future in a way of fear and cancer anymore. I used to. I remember standing in Destin, Florida on the ocean in the sand, and my husband was behind me. And I remember thinking, what if this is the last time I see the ocean? What if this is the last time I'm here? And because I cast myself forward, wondering, living in this fear, I robbed myself of really enjoying that moment. It could have been the last time. I haven't been back since. But the point is that here and now is where we're going to find the most joy. One of the things I share with people when I speak, I don't know where it came from, so I'm not going to claim it as my own, but anxiety is the anticipation of a negative event. So we're catastrophizing the future. And when we project ourselves there, we're losing out on time now. You could be doing something better with your time. So with that, does everything happen for a reason? It's up to you. It's up to you and what you think and how you want to look at what you've been through. I will tell you, though, that everything happens with a lesson. And it's up to us to figure out that lesson in order for us to grow and to become a better you. That's it for today. Until next time.